What up, what up, what up, YouTube? This your boy 2G coming straight out of Rock City, New York. Today I want to talk about the album by Public Enemy. It was their second album. It takes a nations of millions to hold us back. Whoa, that was a deep title. Deep title. Takes a nations of millions to hold us back. And they sold millions. That's right, they sold millions. This album came out in 1988 and at that time, it was nothing else like it. It was nothing like it. I mean, this album is a complete masterpiece from top to bottom. Like I said before, it was nothing like it. The sound, the format, the production, the clarity, the dense, unmelodic production provided by the Bomb Squad, Hank Shockley, Keith Shockley, Eric Vietnam Sadler. They just went ham on the production. It was an all-out attack on the music industry. The main reason why is because their first album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, it was an outdated album. By the time they finished Yo Bum Rush the Show, rappers were, styles was changing. You know, Eric B. and Rakim and Sonic was coming out. They were sampling, and new techniques was involved to evolve the rap game. And you know, Public Enemy, they were supposed to be only in the music industry for a year. You know, they was they thought they was just gonna do one album. You know, and getting the fellas a deal was kind of hard because number one, Chuck D, he didn't want to make an album. He felt like he was too old to make an album, to be rapping. Because most rappers coming out at that time, they were 18, 19, 20. Chuck D maybe was 24, 25. He went to college. He was studying I think it was uh graphic designer. He was studying to be a graphic designer, and he had a vision of being a sports broadcaster because he had a deep voice, a voice that was more sought after on radio or on TV. If you listen to his voice, you would say to yourself, "Yeah, he'll make a good radio DJ," which he was, and you would say that he'll make a good sports commentator because he has a big wide vocal range. Here it is once again. Now I defy the brother, the Terminator, the color. He has a deep voice. You know, and his voice was so deep and so powerful. The Bomb Squad had to come up with a sound that would match his vocal range. You know, he wouldn't sound. Chuck didn't sound right rapping over them those soft sounding hip hop beats at the time. Like they did a song called, I think it was called Lies, and Chuck D's vocals just outweighed the track. His vocals was like an earthquake. His voice rocked the Richter scale. So the Bomb Squad had to come up with some bombastic type of sounds. When they released Yo Bum Rush the Show, the sound was dense. You know, it rocked heavily, but times were changing. That album was delayed, kept getting delayed. And then the group went on tour, and like I said earlier, rappers was evolving and changing up the pace. working with different material, different sounds. So Public Enemy went on tour. They went on the London Invasion tour, and on that tour they were opening acts. You know, some places they went on tour they got booed because people didn't understand the S1Ws. They didn't understand Flav, and they wasn't ready for a political rap group. You know, people had short attention spans back then. They even have a shorter attention span now. But Chuck D and Hank, they was like, yo, we just gonna go and bum rush the show. Because early on, one of the first records they did was Public Enemy #1. That was a demo that they just threw together. And they didn't even have a name for the group. They were going by Spectrum City. And Hank was like, yo, since the record is blowing up as Public Enemy #1, let's just call the group Public Enemy. Let's go out here and make a statement. Let's shock the world. So Rick Rubin signed them. In the beginning, they only wanted to sign Chuck. You know, Chuck was like, nah, I got Griff and the X1Ws, security of the first world. And Rick was like, okay, but who is this guy with the big clock on, eating chicken out of a styrofoam container? Chuck was like, yo, that's Flav. He's the hype man. And people was like, well, we thought Griff was the hype man. Chuck was like, nah, Griff is a front man. He's the minister of information. And they Rick Rubin, Russell Simmons, and Bill Stephanie, they was with it, but they did not want to sign Flavor Flav. Didn't want nothing to do with him. Nothing to do with him. So what ended up happening was Chuck was like, well, if you ain't gonna sign Flav, then I might as well not sign it at all because I don't want to do it anyway. But if you sign Flav, then I'm with it. So they signed Flav. They couldn't deny Flavor Flav's remarkable talent. At the time, he could play up to like 8 instruments very well. But anyway, back to the Nations of Millions. This album was highly influential. They were deemed as eminent, distinguished rap artists. And this album, it was like a psalm, a sacred song, a revelation. You know, the lyricism, their topics just made them irresistible to black people. And it even caught the attention of white people. You know, Chuck came out said when Chuck first came out, he said, "I'm not a racist." He wasn't a racist. He was just talking about whites as individuals, not as a whole. He had a problem with certain individuals. He didn't hate all white people. You know, he was talking about individuals. The CIA, FBI, all they tell us is lies. You know, J. Edgar Hoover, stinking sucker. He had King and X set up. He was talking about that. And he was talking about society, the government. I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers. But anyway, this album was recorded after the London Invasion tour in late '87. And first it was recorded at Chung King Studios. Sorry, y'all. I got a cold, coming down with a sore throat or something. Anyway, it was recorded at Chung Studios in Manhattan, but they had to leave because they had problems with the engineers. The engineers was racist. They didn't want to. They was acting like they didn't want nothing to do with the album because of the lyrical content. So they bounced from Chung King Studios and they finished the album at Green Street Studios. Now Hank Shockley, during production, he incorporated a sound which he called a wall of noise. You know, at the time he was using the SP 1200 drum machine, which he had to improvise. And Hank Shockley is like the oh man, he's a genius. He's a scientist when it comes to production. when it comes to music productions. He'll find a way to improvise and come up with new sounds from nothing. I mean, he would add an effect on on a little piece of sound, and he'll make it sound bigger than bigger than what it really is. Like a small whistling sound, he'll make it sound like a siren. You know, like their trademark siren sounds on Rebel Without a Pause or Terminator X to the Edge of Panic. Those type of sounds was just a little whistling sound he had sampled. He sampled it on Rebel Without a Pause, and then he reversed the sample on Terminator X to the Edge of Panic. If you listen to those two songs, it's the same sound. Just one is just in reverse. He reversed it on the Edge of Panic. You know, that's nobody was doing nothing like that at the time. Nobody even thought of doing that. Record companies, in fact, didn't even want nothing to do with it. They didn't want nothing to do with that Bomb Squad Wall of Noise sound because they were saying it was garbage and number one, it'll never sell. You know, it has no melody, and he was working with 808s and all types of low tone sounds. You know, Hank Shockley was one of the first to release the sustain on a kick drum. Rick Rubin was doing it back in the days, and Rick Rubin got it from Andre Brown. You know, but Hank Shockley found out a way to release it so you would get like a low frequency, a sub bass frequency, and they didn't even make sub bass speakers back then. Now, if you listen to It Takes a Nation of Millions CD, if you listen to the remastered version, you'll hear sounds that you didn't hear on the cassette back then. You'll hear stuff in the background that you didn't even know they sampled. You know, and you have Flavor Flav, who was the hype man. Flavor Flav was important to the group because he was the treble to Chuck D's deep bass vocals. You know, like treble and bass, they go together. They balance each other. Chuck was the bass, Flavor Flav was the treble. Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. And they were in sync with each other. And it made the Bomb Squad's dense production more live, you know, more more deep, you know, and it just blew everybody's mind. I remember when I first heard Rebel Without a Pause, it literally blew me away like the man in the Maxwell chair because that's how loud and intense it was. I had never heard nothing like that. I heard it in the park. I was walking to the basketball court in 1987, and some kids with these gigantic boom boxes was just blasting it, and it rocked my world. It rocked the boat, fucked me up. I went home and told my mom about it. She was like, "What? A rebel? Who?" And she was like, "Wow, that's nice." When your mom say some music is nice, then you know it's nice. And you had Terminator X. To this day, I never heard Terminator X speak. He always spoke with his hands. I would see him at concerts backstage. He would never speak. He always spoke with his hands. He left all the talking to Griff, Chuck, and Flav. You know, Now Professor Griff, who was an important part of the group, he was the minister of information, and he was also the road manager. He kept the group together when they would go on tours and stuff. And Professor Griff and Flavor Flav, they were like oil and water. The two did not mix. And it wasn't like Griff hated him. It's just that he was trying to show Flav some tough love because Flav was missing shows and they were going on coming out of the cold tour and the PE tour, and Flav was getting high, and None of the members of Public Enemy, none of the members of PE drank or smoked. Flav was the one getting high, missing shows and stuff, and Griff was the road manager. He was getting fed up, and Griff is a militant dude. He was fresh out the military. You when you're dealing with Professor Griff, you got to be on time. If you're 5 minutes early, you're late. You know that's how Griff rolled, and he was a third-degree black belt in karate. All them SWs, all the S1Ws was martial artists, and they had militant minds. They were the security behind Public Enemy. There was nothing to mess with. And Flav would go on tour. He'd be drunk and high. He'll get into it with some people in the crowd, and Griff would come in and grab Flav with one hand and protect him. He was protecting him in the beginning, but he got tired of it, and he got tired of him missing shows because now they're performing on Soul Train. At first they didn't think they was gonna be in the game this long. They was performing all over the country. Then they started performing all over the world, and it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. It just started taking off like a rocket, taking off. When the album first come on, the first song is Countdown to the Armageddon. With that sound, that siren. That was a live show that they recorded at the London Palladium, at the Hammersmith Ballroom. And man, they rocked the house. And another track was Bring the Noise, which just was unbelievable. Those drums, everything about that song, you know, it just was unbelievable. And Don't Believe the Hype, they was talking about the media and how the media was criticizing rap and all that stuff. And Flav and Chuck was telling you don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype is a sequel. As an equal, can I get this through to you? My 98 booming with a trunk of funk. Then you had Cold Lamping with Flavor Flav. A clock on my chest proves I don't fess. I'm a clocker rocker, rocking with the rest. Flavor in the House by Chuck D. Side. Chuck got the flavor on high. PE Flavor, crazy PE. Make it crazy Louis for my shopping spree. And then you had Terminator X at the Edge of Panic. That was another slamming jam. That was another party record. Like I said, it was that 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 uh that sound, that siren in reverse from Rebel Without a Pause. That's what made it so dope. And it gave PE a signature sound. That was Hank and Keith's idea. You know. Then you had Mind Terrorist, and louder than a bomb. Louder, louder. Come on. They sampled that from I think it was Fantastic Five. Louder. Yeah, and he had caught. Can I get a witness? Yo, Chuck, they got the P in court. They got the P in court before the judge on some nonsense. Yo, Chuck Flav. That's once. Let's get it. They was talking about rappers getting sued for samples, and back then it wasn't a law like how it is today. Now shoot, you can you can you can get your pants sued off for sampling, but back then, I mean, it wasn't really considered a big deal because they was sampling old records, old dusty records. They was bringing the the the, the sound from the 60s and 70s back, and they felt like we doing y'all old cats a favor, you know. And then you had another skit like Show 'em What You Got, and she watched Channel Zero. They was talking about women obsessed with soap operas. Soap operas. She watched Channel Zero. Yo, we got a black quarterback, so step back. That's because in January of 1988, the Redskins won the Super Bowl with a black quarterback, Doug Williams. Flavor Flav, yeah, we got a. I'm gonna take your set, throw it out the window, G. Then we got Night of the Living Bassheads. Now, as y'all know, Flavor Flav was not on this song. Why wasn't he on the song? Hmm. Look at the title, Night of the Living Bassheads. He was in the video, but he wasn't on the song. He had nothing to do with that song. You do the homework. Then you had Black Still in the Hour of Chaos. I got a letter from the government. That was the song that Chuck. That was a personal song from Chuck because he had a family member that experienced draft evasion. You know, back during the Vietnam War, and a lot of blacks was trying to, you know, get out of that draft. Try to avoid get. They was trying to avoid getting drafted because number one, they felt like why should African Americans fight for a country that wouldn't fight for them? Why should they go over to Vietnam and kill innocent poor people that they don't even know? You know, a lot of black people was against that war in Vietnam. You know, our fight is right here, right at home. You know, a Viet Cong ain't never called us no nigga. A Viet Cong ain't never denied us our rights. We don't even know the motherfuckers. You know, I got a letter from the government. All I wanted was peace, so I just took the peace. You know, and at first Hank wasn't sure if he wanted to put that track out because it was menacing. It was an assault on the government. You know, and plus he just wasn't comfortable yet. He didn't have the right approval. So one day he was in the studio talking to Blue Ivy. At the time, he changed his name to Lenny Kravitz, and he had his girlfriend Lisa Bonet from the Cosby Show. They were in the studio, and Hank is the type of dude. He's not gonna prepare you to listen to one of his tracks. You know, he's not gonna say, "Yo, check out this new track I did." No, he's not gonna do that. He'll be talking to you, and he'll just throw it on, just to see your attention. He'll turn it down low and throw it on just to see your reaction. If you don't say nothing, he'll just keep talking. But all the while he's looking at your reaction. He's studying you to see how you're gonna react. So when he threw Black Steel in Hour of Chaos, Lenny Kravitz wasn't saying that. They were just talking about music and stuff. And Lisa Bonet said, "What is that coming out of the speakers? What is that? That sounds amazing. Oh my goodness. That's the most amazing music I ever heard. Is that rap music? Oh my gosh, that's amazing." And Hank was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you like this?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, 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 I love it." And Lenny Kravitz was looking like, "Oh, you love it? Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, if my wife loves it, I love it. Yeah, yeah, that's nice." And Hank was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's these guys I'm working with." He didn't even say it was for Public Enemy, you know. But the light bulb went off over his head, and he knew that album had to go on that song had to go on the album. He knew that was the red flag. That was his green light to go and put that on the album. And Rebel Without a Pause, that was the first track that they did, because they heard I Know You Got Soul by Eric B. and Rakim, and you know they had to come out better than everybody else. LL was out, when I'm Bad, and '87 was a big year, and West Coast was starting to come out, and they Rebel Without a Pause had to be the best to come out from Public Enemy, because Yo Bum Rush the Show, was outdated. They had to be top notch. And once again, Hank Shockley's in the studio with leaders of the new school. They were young at the time, and they were talking about music, and he was talking to Busta Rhymes and all that, and Dinko D and Charlie Brown, and then Hank threw on Rebel Without a Pause. And leaders of the new school, they just Was like, yo, they was like, yo, what's that? Yo, what's that, G? Yo, that's hot. Yo, rewind that again. Play that from the top. And they were young, they were teenagers. I mean, so that gave Hank an idea of what their generation was listening to, and it gave him the idea of what kids their age, how they're gonna react, you know. And that was a sample of the Funky Drummer, them drums. And actually, Flav was playing the drums on Rebel Without a Pause. He played the sample back, you know. And the next track was Prophets of Rage, and they were basically saying they were prophets of rage. It's taking the nations of millions to hold them back because they some prophets enraged. You know. And the last track, Party for Your Right to Fight. Yeah, yeah, y'all, party for your right to fight. A lot of people don't even know the meaning behind that. Party for your right to fight. In '86, the Beastie Boys had a song called "You Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party." Public Enemy said, "We gotta party for our right to fight." They reversed it once again. Hank said, "Let's reverse it. Party for your right to fight. Fight for your right to party." They chopped up the Beastie Boys "Fight for Your Right to Party." Fight for your right. Party. Party for your right. Don't give up the fight. Yeah, boy. But anyway, that was that was like an ode to the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. You know, so that's what they were talking about. The Black Panther Party, because they was fighting for their right. They was fighting for all black people's rights. A lot of people don't know it, but the Black Panthers, they provided food, clothing, and shelter to the black community, and they was giving people they was giving black people knowledge of their rights, their laws, their constitutional rights, stuff that black people didn't know they had back in the '60s. You know, they like I said, they provided food, clothing, and shelter. Food, clothing, and shelter. They had free breakfast for kids, that didn't have any food, stuff like that. A lot of people don't even know what the Black Panthers was about. A lot of people don't even know that there were some white Panthers in Michigan, who felt the same way the Black Panthers felt. Because Huey Newton, when asked, somebody asked Huey Newton, "What can white people to help? What can white people do to help the Black Panthers?" And Huey Newton said they can start their own chapter and call it the White Panthers, and they can fight for equal rights. You know, because a lot of white people, they especially the Irish, they were slaves too. You know, they felt like this world should be united, not divided. It's always that 1% that feels the same way the minorities feel. So that was that, and this album caught the attention of Madonna, out of all people, and she liked that song. It was a skit that they had on there, "Security of the First World." Doom doom dat 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 stat doom doom dat 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 stat. Madonna loved that song, and she wanted to work with the Bomb Squad, and I think it was "Justify My Love" she had, and Hank was like, "Yo, you like that beat? It was a skit on our album. You could sing over it." Man, when they put Madonna over that track, all hell broke loose, man. That shit was dope. I think it was "Justify My Love." Y'all know what I'm talking about. That Madonna single where she was singing over. one of Public Enemy's beats back in '89, '90. That shit was dope. And there were squabbles between Professor Griff and Flavor Flav. Flav was, like I said earlier, he was showing up late and he was getting on Griff's nerves. So one day, Flav he didn't show up at a studio session or something, or a show or something. So Griff and S1Ws had to go grab him and literally pick him up. And Flav was like, "Yo, I ain't going nowhere, G." So Griff hauled off and punched Flav in the clock. He used to wear these big clocks, and Griff punched the clock. And then Flav tried to charge at him, and Griff roundhoused him. Wham! Everybody was like, "Oh," you know. Flav kept trying to charge at him, and Griff Griff hit him in his rib, broke his ribs. And Flav was hurt by that. Flav was gonna kill Griff. He went and got a gun, but he didn't do it because some divine power stopped him. Because Flav was drunk and high and out of his mind. And all Griff was trying to do was show him some tough love. But Flav really didn't want to continue on with Griff. But right after this album, they had went on tour. They did a couple of dates, and not a couple of dates. They went on the road for a couple of months. And Griff was, since he was the Minister of Information, he told the Washington he was interviewing the Washington he was interviewing with the Washington Post, David Mills and all of them. And the interview was supposed to be about the group and hip hop, and somehow it shifted from hip hop to politics. And Griff, he was already on fire because he had just finished reading this book called The Secret Relationship Between the Blacks and Jews. So he was already on fire about that. And since the Washington Post wanted to talk about politics and all that, Griff said the majority of the Jews are wicked. He made some anti-Semitic comments, and that's what they wanted to. I think that's what they wanted him to do. Make some anti-Semitic comments so they can slam Public Enemy because they were too black and too goddamn strong. You know, some people they have they've mastered the art of trickery. They'll trick you into anything. That's what the devil do. He's the king of deceit, lies, and trickery. And Griff knew that. So he said, so y'all want to talk about politics? Let's talk about how the Jews are a nation. They're a nation concealing their own identity to steal someone else's to achieve monetary control on a global scale. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what they had to do with slavery, their part in slavery. They was pinching pennies, trying to get rich. We're getting rich off slavery. They didn't want to talk about that. Oh, yeah, see, Public Enemy is racist and all this stuff. So Chuck had to temporarily suspend um, Griff from the group. And Griff was like, "How do you suspend somebody from a rap group? Suspend? Come on, man. This is hip hop. Freedom of speech. Suspend somebody from a rap group." And Griff is an avid reader. His 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 mentality is heavy. He has the mind like Farrakhan. He's deep. He doesn't drink or smoke. He's in his 50s today and he still look like he's 25. The brother's deep. He's blessed. I respect him. I respect all of them. You know. But Professor Griff, we're gonna talk about Professor Griff later on. I'll do I'll do a breakdown of him and the Asiatic disciples. But time is up. Gotta go. Please like and subscribe, and hit me up on Facebook 2G at Facebook. Spell it out for you. TWOGEE Lots LOTTS 2G Lots at Facebook. Hit me up. Please leave your comments in the comment box. One love.